to get to that next level, you're going to need to shift gears, and you need to shift your mind. Like, change means you change. The conscious mind only makes up about 5 to 10% of your decisions and your behaviors. What about the other 95%? People talk about like a fear of failure, right? Which is like they think that this is the biggest thing that's holding them back. I'm going to challenge that. That's only half true. There is something called a fear of success.
What one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
I want you to really challenge your thoughts.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show. I'm your host, Ethan Cassiotis, and today I have an awesome guest. His name is Karim Boktor. He went from a bullied stutterer to an international TEDx speaker, peak performance coach, and creator of the Boktor method, a powerful blend of advanced hypnotherapy, human behavior science, and techniques inspired by Tony Robbins. And after escaping persecution in Egypt as a child and nearly losing his business to crippling anxiety, Karim realized the root of his struggles was internal. And by applying these exact methods to himself, he rewired lifelong patterns, rebuilt his confidence, and found his voice. And today, he works with NFL athletes, CEOs, and leaders like Nick Bell from Shark Tank and Lauren Tickner to help them do the same, by break through invisible blocks and perform at their highest level. He's been featured in Business Insider, Ozpreneur, and Inspirepreneur, and Karim lives by one truth, that you can't outperform the identity you've still stuck in. Welcome, Karim, and thank you for being on the Business Growth Show.
Great intro, man. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, mate. I aim to do it with some energy, and it's awesome to have you here as well. And I'm sure it's going to be a great episode for everyone watching and listening today. And you are a successful entrepreneur. So for those people who don't know who you are, just introduce yourself by telling us a little bit more about you and your journey.
So my name is Karim, as you know. I think the most pivotal part of my life was when I was in surgical devices. So I was in surgery, coaching and mentoring surgeons. So I was always in that high performing role. And I've always loved being in that environment. And then the wife was pregnant. She was about to have our first kid. And I'm like, well, I want more time and more money, right? Because I really want to spend time with my wife, spend time with my future child. So why don't I go out and open up a business? So it wasn't my first business. I was pretty confident. I wanted to get away from a highly stressful corporate job, even though it was earning me some pretty good money. And then so I went into the business. I quickly found out. So at the same time that my son was born, at the same week, we settled into the business. That's just how it worked out, right? It was a long settlement, and it just took a long time. And my son had colic. So for those who don't know what colic means, is that he had some digestive issues, and it meant that he couldn't sleep. We didn't know what it was. So he was waking up every 20 minutes, which meant I was waking up every 20 minutes. I was going into a new business, a business that had been run down that I was meant to bring back up. And for whatever reason, I was going into work and I was sleep deprived. And so I couldn't lead my team. And because I couldn't lead my team and the staff and couldn't make really good decisions, my business started to spiral. At that moment, I had finished my MBA. I had business experience in the past. I had hired business coaches. I had all the right marketing. I had everything, but for whatever reason, the business wasn't working. And I couldn't understand why. And it got to the point where one day Alex found me at home, curled up into a ball with massive anxiety. Got to the point where I couldn't pay rent, I couldn't pay wages, and I was scared of losing everything. And it was a really big moment because my parents had fought so hard to come to Australia. They came with nothing. They worked multiple jobs. And, here I am again, gone backwards. And it was a really, really tough moment in my life. Like I'd become a failure to my wife. I'd became a failure to my future son. I was a failure as a husband and wife, as a husband and father and a provider. And I was fucked, right? I'm not sure if I'm allowed to swear, but I'm like, this is done. Like I'm gone. And then Alex found me curled up into a ball, like having a panic attack, crying hysterically. I'm like, I'm just frozen. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do now. And I decided just to take a day off the next day. And I'm like, God, the universe, whoever, speak to me, right? Give me a sign. And I remember sitting on the couch in my jocks, feeling sorry for myself, just feeling like this is done. And I remember turning on Netflix because I didn't want to do anything else. And I remember watching I'm Not Your Guru by Tony Robbins. I didn't know much about Tony at the time, but I remember watching it and I'm thinking, man, this guy's really inspiring me. And there is something about what he's doing that's helping people in such little time that's really making an impact. And I didn't have time. I didn't want to go to a psychologist. I didn't want to go to a therapist. I didn't want to hug. I wanted cash. Right? I needed money now and I needed results now. So I was really intrigued by what he was teaching and what he was doing. And so I just started Googling and I started um, learning more about what he did, what Tony Robbins did. And then I just Googled something simple like, what did Tony Robbins study? And it said neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, which is what you studied as well, right? And I'm like, what's this? I've never heard of it before. So I'm like, the best schools in Australia to study NLP, right? That was my next search. And then I enrolled myself into learning more about this thing. I didn't know what it was. And it wasn't to save my business. It was just more around getting myself out of this funk, right? What is this that I'm going through? I've never done personal development. I've never done any of that stuff. And so I enrolled myself into this thing. Um, and it was like an intro. It was like a week or 2 weeks. Can't remember what it was. And within that week or within that 2 weeks that I did, my business started to increase. Like my business started to like grow. And I'm like, hang on, what's going on here? I've just spent $100,000 on an MBA, right? I've done all the things. I've got all the experience. I've hired the marketers, the business coaches, all those types of things. Here is this thing that nobody really knows about, and my business is improving. And what I realized that I was the problem, right? So everything, all my thoughts and all those things that were holding me back, uh, I was the problem. I couldn't lead, not because of anyone else, but because of me. And that was a big pivotal moment because I had assumed and thought that the reason that I had this panic attack was because of that moment. Yes, that moment contributed to that. But then I realized what I had learned is that I had a lifelong issue and problem with anxiety my whole life. I thought everyone was like this. I thought everyone had a racy mind. People were just highly wired, all those types of things. That was just the norm, right? Until I did this thing, this technique that my coach did with me, sort of like hypnosis, and my whole world was just quiet. And for the very first time in like 30 or 40 years, I could hear, I could listen. There was no self chatter, there was no self limiting belief chatter talk. It was just quiet. I remember that night I had the best sleep in my life. And and I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it now because it was like one of the most pivotal times in my life because it was like this, right? It was like someone turned on a light inside of me and now I could finally see. I could finally see the aisle, the mess in the aisles that I've created all my life. and I can finally start cleaning it up. Where in the past I was just blind, right? I just couldn't see. And yeah, and then my business started to increase, and then I started learning more about this. I'm like, hang on, what else am I missing out on? So I started learning more and more, to the point where I couldn't study this thing anymore. I'd become a master trainer so I can certify people in doing the same. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if I can learn something else, like another modality. And I just started learning all these other things. And then people started asking me about business problems or, business strategies. And so I became like a business consultant. So I sold the business, and I became a business consultant. And then I quickly realized is that what I was using wasn't really business strategy. What I was using was around mindset, because I was identifying the problems in the business, which is, they're all the same. But the reason why they were doing these business problems were presenting itself was because of a deeper issue, right? Everyone's got this. It's not like, oh, I don't have this, I'm different. It's no, right? They're all mindset beliefs. And um yeah, so then I just started weaning off the whole business consulting thing and started doing mind performance, and just started going deeper and doubling down in that. And that was really, yeah. So to cut a long story short, that's my journey and that's my story. And for those who don't know, I grew up with a stutter. So um I was riddled. I had massive anxiety, grew up with dyslexia, couldn't read properly. I was isolated from my peers because my teachers told me that I was dumb, all that type of thing. And uh, like it was really a really good uh like a really good awakening, because I'm finally now in control, because everyone told me that like that was just me, and there's no one else, like there's nothing that you can do about it. And now I'm on a mission. Like this is my world. My this is my why, is because it doesn't have to be that way. And now I'm helping people all around the world, globally, helping achieve whatever they can or whatever they want in such little time, using a mixture of all these modalities that I've created and put into one modality called the Boktor method.
Yeah, awesome, man. What a story. Really, really powerful, right? And it shows. It's like it's funny, right? Like people see us like at our level of journey. We're all on a journey, right? And it's like, oh, you must have been born like this. It's like, nah. we've had to overcome a lot, right, to get to
Yes.
where we are today. All the hundreds of failures or the things that we've had to break through, and just like you say, is like, and I do this with my clients, right? Like I've got an MBA as well. I do more of the business. Obviously, I do business strategy, but I understand that mindset is the important thing as well. That's why I'm an NLP master practitioner, because it's like, wait a minute, you just said something limiting. You're not going to implement the strategy if we don't fix the mindset, right? Like there. So I love that part. I love that you've doubled down on it and really honed in on that craft. And I think it's really important, and because yeah, we can teach the same thing to 10 different people, and we're going to get 10 different results, right? And unless we
Mm.
improve that mindset, then it's they're going to stay stuck in that way. So I think yeah, it's amazing, right? With what you've done there. Now, I know something that you talk about is around like let's do it from a business perspective. We're going. I love business events. I speak, you speak as well at business events, and we attend many of them as well.
Yeah.
And and there's obviously different types of people that happen at these events, right? And if two people go to these events, they read the same books, they have the same 24 hours in a day. One breaks through and the other stays stuck in the same cycle. Like, why is
Yeah.
this?
It all comes down to what they actually want and believe. So I know this sounds silly, right? And I know this sounds stupid, but in that moment, that person that takes action, he's seeing, or he or she is seeing that there is a benefit in that moment for them to actually do. They're tired of what they're doing. It's really uncomfortable to the point that they want change, right? And that's the switch. The person who doesn't take action, they logically think and know that they want more. right? But there is a bigger part of them subconsciously that is too comfortable and they don't want the change. That is essentially why people are getting people are stuck. And they'll come up with the excuses and they'll give you the story, but you don't know this, and I've got no time, and this is happening at home, or whatever the story is. Um, they'll give it to you, and they'll really sell it, and they'll make it believe like, man, like poor thing, you know. But that's the number one driver is the story that we tell ourselves and believe, because subconsciously we are not ready to get to that next level. So I want you to imagine like someone who's like starving, someone who hasn't eaten in like 3 or 4 days, right? And they're really, 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 really hungry. If you say to them, hey, just read this book, and what will happen is that um, you're gonna find bread. They're gonna do it. They're gonna read that book because they're really hungry and they want to feed their family, and like a piece of bread is magically gonna is going to appear. They're gonna get the bread, right? Because they're really uncomfortable in that time and they're really, really hungry. You tell someone who can have 3 meals a day, he's but they just want more. They want 4 meals a day. You tell them, hey, like if you read this book, you're gonna get a fourth meal. They may read the book, they may take action on this thing, but most likely than not, a lot of the times people don't take action because they're just too comfortable themselves. Now, the reason why they're too comfortable, that's another thing. Why are they comfortable? So your brain always wants to go into familiarity. One of the big things that I talk about, so people talk about like a fear of failure, right? Which is like they think that this is the biggest thing that's holding them back. I'm going to challenge that. That's only half true. There is such thing called something called a fear of success, which holds people back. Even someone like me, right? I had to be really down in the dumps, right? To get a big kick, to get a really big kick up the ass to be like, I need change. And that's how I change. That's how I was motivated to do it, right? And this is for a lot of the people. Now, the reason why there was a big fear of success for me and for a lot of the population is because your brain wants to go back into familiarity. It scans your past and it says, well, in our past, we're not successful. We don't have a lot of money. We're constantly, hustling. Things need to be hard. You have to work hard, you know? And because of that, your future doesn't seem so appetizing, right? And so you're constantly wanting to stay in that pattern of familiarity, in that pattern of fight or flight. And that's the reason. And so when people work with me, it's like, how do we get them out of that pattern and remove that fear that's in your body, that's in your mind? But that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, awesome, man. I love it. It's so true, isn't it? How yeah, it's funny. It's like you need to be at that bottom point sometimes because if you don't go
Yes.
down, it's like what's going to be the thing that makes you shift? And it's like the environment sometimes telling you, like going, it's like when someone has a health scare, right? And it's like shit. They have a little, it could be something small or it could be a little heart attack or something like that. Like, all right, I got to get my health in order, right? And it shouldn't
Yeah.
have to be like that. Sometimes you need to be in the dumps with your business or something and going, something needs to
Yes.
change, in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And often life will give you these like signs, like it'll come knocking, hey man, like you need change, right? Maybe the wife will say something. Maybe, your team, the team members will start leaving, and they'll be like, oh, no, it's not me, it's them, right? And then like something else happens and it just gets more and more drastic and life keeps demanding more from you. And if you keep ignoring it, it's gonna it's gonna knock you out. And like hopefully you can make that change before those things happen, right? It's like, yeah, um allowing yourself to to be in abundance before you need to go into scarcity.
Yeah. I love it. It's the saying of the feather, the brick, and the Mack truck, right? It's like the
Yeah.
feather comes in, lets you know, then you might get a little brick, and hopefully you change it the brick, hopefully, there, because
Yes.
you don't want the Mack truck because it's a lot harder, to
Yes.
come back from that.
Yes.
Um, and
Yes.
and it's interesting, right? Because um, like when I went to my first personal development event, right? I got a free ticket. My mate paid 4 grand. A week before, they said you can bring a friend for free. Now I went there like I had paid 4 grand because I knew that when you pay attention a lot of the time. People don't
Yes.
necessarily do that. So I was like, that's it. I wrote 100 pages of notes over three
Wow.
days, and I went and implemented because I was driven. Right, I started my first business. I quit my job, burnt the boats, like Tony Robbins says,
That's
and started my
right.
business with no
Yes.
traction. Very risky, right? I don't
So you were
recommend.
motivated. Yeah.
Motivated, right? Motivated, and my cash flow is going down, and I get this opportunity 3 months in, comes up. The universe, God, whatever you want to say, is like, Ethan, you need this, right? And
Yes.
I'm like, shit, yeah, I do. And then I implemented, got my first big client, Westfield, and bang, I was like, I got to keep
Wow.
learning more about this stuff, right? And then it's like we go on the journey. It's like you get that one breakthrough of personal development, and then it's like, ideally, like us, it's like I got to learn more. How can I better myself? Because the business only gets as big as the owner, right? Or how much we
Mm.
can help people from how much we grow as well
Yes.
in that way. So very powerful.
Yeah, man. So, um, one of the things that I do with a lot of business owners is I get them in part of our first sessions is to ask them about what their money story is. So I get them to see, okay, well, what was it like growing up, right? What was your relationship with money? And a lot of them will be like, yeah, it was good, you know? And then like once we start peeling away the layer, it was more like I saw mum and dad work hard, right? They were working really hard for their money. Yes, possibly, we got a lot of things, but we didn't really see them much. They were working really hard. And that was their relationship with money, is that it had to be hard for them to earn and feel like it was deserved. And so in their mind, the reason why they can't get to that next level is because your brain is like, well, for me to get to that next level means that I have to work harder. And that's not generally what it means, right? And so you've got this false belief, this false feedback, and that's why people don't do the things that they need to do. So then they procrastinate, they don't take action, and then the flip things like then the opposite happens, right? So they're really good executors, right? And they grow their business to millions of dollars, but then they can't scale to that next level. And the reason why is because the reason why they got the business to that level was because they were in control the whole time, right? And they can't get to that next level, and they're going to the courses, they're attending more Tony Robbins, they're doing all these things, right? But the reason why they can't get that business to that next level, there is like invisible ceiling, this barrier. They're like, oh my gosh, why can't I just break through? Is because they have trouble delegating. They can't trust that that next person can do the same thing with them, even though they've possibly hired the right people. It's like, no, I need to do it for myself because I know that I'm going to do it right, or because they think and feel that if they hand it over to that next person, is that they're going to have to do it anyway, and it's going to double, you know. So there is just something there around the belief around not being able to let go of this thing that they've been having to um having to do because they've been doing it for so long, and it becomes like their baby. So it's like a double-sided coin. Yeah, and they're the two biggest things.
Yeah, I love it, man. Very, very powerful. And yeah, we've all got money stories growing up. I got the benefit of my dad saying money is the root of all evil to me hundreds of times growing up. Gotta love that one, having to reframe. And everyone's got the other ones, right? Of what that is.
Yeah.
So, but now it's awareness, right? Like how powerful is it? I've got a 9 month old at the time of recording this, and you got a child as well.
Yeah.
To have the awareness that we have, and I tell my child positive affirmation beliefs every day
Yes.
for when he's born, what that will do to the next generation, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So part of the big reason why I went on this journey and I had this big light bulb moment, I didn't want my son coming into this world believing that whatever I was doing and thinking and feeling was the standard, was the gold standard. Because I know that's what happens. Your children look up to you like they're your role model, and then they do the thing that you do, right? And it becomes like this generational thing. And I'm like, nah, man, stuff this. Like I was 140 kilos, really, really big anxiety, depression, really low self-confidence, really bad money management, right? I was riddled and I didn't want him thinking that this was normal. Like people spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for the kids in their lifetime because they want them to have the best education. The best thing that you could give them is give them the best examples of you being the best version of you because that's who they become. And you're 100% right. Is that, you know, kids learn from us not by from what we tell them, but from what they see.
Yeah, definitely, man. I love it. So powerful and well done on your journey, of where you've gotten to, right? Like I think anybody that's done anything, they've had to overcome. And I think it's interesting, right? Because I think the younger generations now, they're not built as tough, let's call it, right? You know what I mean? It's delayed gratification. That's the thing,
Yeah.
right? Is like I'm
Right.
willing to sacrifice now to go through the hard stuff, to work through my challenges and whatever it is, life,
Mhm.
business, to get to a point because I know that I'll be better off in the end, right? Whereas most people are like, no, I want it now. I'll just pay for it. And what's easy to me, which
Yes.
comes back to the comfortable side of things, instead of being the uncomfortable. So I think it's how do we shift that, right? In the world that we're at now is a bit of the challenge with people if they haven't built that grit and resilience as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of the times, like when I speak to founders or business owners, and they're like, Karim, like you just don't get it. I'm like, what don't I get? And they're like, you know, I've got these triggers, right? And because of my past, because of my childhood, whatever the story is, and they see that as a weakness. But then after they finish with me, they see it as a strength. Because what they don't realize is that the most like today's billionaires, they all had a story. And the reason why that they are billionaires today is because of that grit and of that resilience. So if they can overcome these things that have been holding them back, they're going to overcome most of these stresses in the first place. And it's about understanding that these things that have happened in the past will allow you to get to that next level. Like it's actually a strength that people can't buy. And once they get this, they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I want to teach grit and resilience to my kids then." Right? And so then they teach them about like responsibilities and then they teach them about, like gratification and the value of hard work and the value of money. Because just like what you said as well, is that what your internal world becomes your external world. And that's a huge part of being successful.
Yeah, definitely, man. Love it. It's very, very powerful. And um, I think one thing that I see, right, that I see in my clients makes a difference. And it's like, because it's always like there's incremental shifts, as you know, and then there's like big shifts that can happen, right, in somebody. And one of the big shifts that I see that can happen is our identity, right? Where, it's like we've believed something about ourselves. We have a particular identity, especially, if you think of it like a business owner, right? Like having to, maybe they think they're an operator, maybe they're still thinking like a job mentality or whatever. It's like,
Mm,
what's that identity? What are those? And there's levels of identity, of course, as well, is understanding that. So, I'd love to know, because then it's obviously what supports that identity and everything too. I'd love to know from your perspective, right? Like when you look at people and do identity work, like yeah, what are your thoughts around that, and how we can get those, I guess, profound shifts, as well.
So I think it comes down to what their inner belief. So whenever someone speaks to me, I look for really uh like words in a sentence that for most people would be like, oh, but we're just having a chat. But if I'm speaking to someone and they're like, um, uh, you know, they'll say a phrase like, I need to work hard for this money, right? Or like it can't be that easy, or I've done this for so long, so I can't change. Those little things that they say are really, really big in terms of what's keeping them stuck in their mind, right? So just like what you said, so as an example, you would work with businesses that are like family run businesses. They're doing like millions of dollars, right? But it's still family run and it's more like a job, right? So they've just bought a job. It's not a real business because they have to be there 40, 50, 60 hours a week just to keep it running. And so I'm looking for these beliefs. And once we understand, so a lot of these guys will tell you the same thing, right? They would say, well, I can't I can't let go and just stay home and, just relax. It just doesn't happen, right? I need to be in the business, and there's this cliche thing, right? I need to be in the business, working in the business, and that means that I can't work on the business, right? It's this thing. It's cliche, but it's just the way that it is. And so they can't let go because of this fear of letting go, right? And that's one of the main things. Like it's so simple and people want this like, big thing, but then they can't let go. And so they have a look at their past, like, and it's this pattern, right? What they've seen in the past. Maybe they've seen their parents work so hard. Maybe themselves, they've been working, building up this business for so long that it's like, I can't now hand over my baby to a stranger because I'm afraid that they're going to mess it up. And that's the reason, right? So when you see people on like, but they're the same people that like will scroll through Instagram and be envious of people on yachts. The people on the yachts aren't really working that day, right? They're sipping on their cocktails, they've got their chefs because they're not working. So like, what do you want? And a lot of the times that people they say they want the yachts, they want the lifestyle, but then they self-sabotage it by not doing the same thing. It just becomes like this story, right? And they'll be like, well, no, I can't have that because I need to stay in my business and do this thing. And it becomes like a love story, right? Like a drama. And they become in love with it. Um, but yeah, and like in that moment, so like in that moment, they're in a trance. They think and believe that this is how my life needs to be. And this is it. Like, I need to be in control. I need to be here because growing up, my dad taught me that you need to stay in the business, be in control. People are going to screw you over. You need to look at every dollar. You need to do this. You need to do that. And it's totally like it's what got them there, yes. But to get to that next level, you're going to need to shift gears and you need to shift your mind. Like change means you change. And that's one of the biggest things.
Yeah, it's so powerful, right? And it's the commitment. I see it with my clients as well, where like they even say it sometimes. It's like, oh, we got to this point before, but then it all came crashing down, and then they're like, shit, we need some help, and then they'll find me, right? And it's like we get
Yes.
to this point, and there's like there's this little thing. I go, listen, guys, you need to commit here and go. This is the change. You need to trust the process and do these steps, right, on yourself and then in the business. And once you do that, you will break through. Then all of a sudden, it's like, wow, I've never been through this before, right? But it's like that
Yes.
trust, right? That
Yeah.
you can actually do it, and
Mm.
that it's possible, to have that outcome as well.
Yeah. 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 People will always look for what makes sense to them, right? So they'll constantly just do what's repetitive, right? And as soon as you tell them to do something different, uh, for a lot of the times people won't want to do that because, it's too risky. A lot of the times founders and business owners, their profiles are around control. And so they don't really like leaning into help. That's a big thing because it means that maybe they seem weak and it means that they have to slow down and they have to give up control, which means that, man, like you're like, you need to see them naked, right? So, yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of behind business, behind the curtain, there's a lot like there's this person, there's a being, right? This being has had a childhood, has had stories growing up, has a belief. And this person, this being, this child is now an adult, is now running and making decisions based on what their internal world is like. And this is what I say is that really people don't even know this until they go through the experience, is that the thing that is holding you back, the person making these decisions, these wrong decisions that are costing you millions of dollars, is a little child. Because it's usually the little child that is, it's like wanting to fill this void. And I can talk to you more about this, keep going in the rabbit hole around voids of how we create these voids in our childhood, and that's what creates our values. But it's usually that inner child that is running the show. And you see this, right? You may have worked with someone who, like a business owner that has a tantrum and that has triggers and that, makes these really ridiculous decisions and they can't help it because like in that moment they're in a trance and they're making these decisions even though it's going to cost them, but they've got this urge to do this thing, make this decision, right? And yeah, it's like logically, yes, they know that whatever this thing, like it's killing them, right? But they just can't help it and they make the wrong decision. And it's a pattern.
Yeah, I love it, and yeah, and I think the biggest thing as well for me, on top of what you said there, was like, because obviously we have coaches as well, of course, to help us. Is it's the pride and ego side, right? Like,
Mm,
it's like, oh, maybe I should know this, or am I, should I
yes.
reach out for help? Should I ask the question, right? There, when you've got the resource, the gold, right? That's there, and then it's like, oh, do I need to do this thing? And then once you allow it, and I think it's all about awareness, right? Because, and I know both of us done a lot of work, we're quite aware, we can almost, we can realize our thoughts and things as they happen. And it's like, but no, most of the time you need somebody externally to go, hey, you just said this or you just did this, and you're like, oh, I didn't
Yes.
realize, because it's just a pattern, right? And then it's like, oh wow, and then all of a sudden you start to stack these things and you start to become aware, and all of a sudden you can completely change, yeah, your beliefs and your behavior and everything from there. And that's when it's like come really, really powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see the difference in dynamic between here and say like the States, right? Where people in Australia, they don't see coaching as a thing, right? They see it as like therapy. Whereas the people in the States, they're like, if I'm wanting to win gold medal at the Olympics in like a 100-meter sprint, I'm going to need to hire a coach. I'm going to allow them how to run better, right? Someone seeing it like from what you said from the outside, how can I win a gold medal? And I need you to like see what I'm doing wrong. How am I running? What's my technique? What's my skill? And I see like there's a very big difference between the Australian audience. There's a very small percentage that are like, yeah, man, like I really want more, right? I want you to tell me where I'm going wrong. Or they'll put their hand up and saying, hey, you know what? This is where I'm going wrong. This is my pattern of behavior. Help me like see maybe something that I'm doing right. They're just too laid back. Which is a good thing at the same time, right? Whereas you speak to the people in the States and they're like, there's so much riding on what they're going through, but as well, like they have to pay for everything, right? Like there's no free healthcare, there's none of that. There's like everything is just so expensive. It's like they wake up and they just go. And like, as if, like, think about it, right? Like, all the top mind performance people are from the States. Like, that's the home of, they're the home of like the mindset people. Like, your biggest names like Tony Robbins, right? Or Goggins. They're all from the States. And so a lot of the people, so like a lot of the people in Australia, like what you said, have this ego, and they're like, they hire a coach, but they don't really want the coach. They just want to tick the box. Like, they pay a membership to go to the gym, but they don't really go, right? It's just they want to feel like they have that support, but don't really take it up.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? And I love it when I've traveled to the States, or I've had clients as well in the States, and it's a very different mindset. I still think we live in a better country
Of
generally in
course.
Australia, but there's the tall poppy syndrome, and but if you can
Yes.
take the American mindset, right, like of that what you're
Yes.
talking about, and you bring it here, it's like become very unstoppable, right? There's a lot of
Mm,
potential there, and this is the benefit of travel, of what we do is don't just sit in your bubble. And I think the people that do the best as well are the ones that go outside their environment, right? It's like, like if you just stick in your friends group that you grew up with, it's like that's not necessarily where you need to go. It's like you need to get outside of that, whether it's where you live, go out into
mm,
different circles, or you move somewhere, you travel, and all of a sudden, we become, what we put ourselves in that environment.
yeah. Yeah. And I think the biggest thing is that, like, people don't even know what like the subconscious is, right? This was something for me, right? And if this is something for the audience just to even think about and learn about, this is a very real thing. This isn't based on, some woo-woo chakra stuff, right? Even though this is my, I love that stuff, but this is based on science. This is a science thing, is that people don't even know that there is a subconscious. And so whenever I tell them everything that you've been doing so far, so your mind is broken up into two things, right? It's broken up into a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. The conscious mind only makes up about 5 to 10% of your decisions and your behaviors. So everything that you've been doing today, like, is been doing consciously. So reading books, listening to podcasts, going to events and courses and all those types of things, they're all done through the conscious mind. So they're all done consciously. What about the other 95%? And people are like, what do you mean? And I'm like, what about the other 95% that actually controls the thing that you're deciding? Your view, the way that you perceive the world, all those types of things, making your decisions, your beliefs. They're all the things that are making you who you are today. And they're like, okay, so how do I can like change my subconscious? And that's the thing. Between your conscious and your subconscious, you've got this brick wall, this barrier. So as an example, someone who's like someone who can't let go, right? Because of this belief. I can't just simply tell them, hey, just let go, and then the next day they're going to do the thing. Why? Because at the bottom in their subconscious, there's a programming happening. You can't outrun and outperform your subconscious. And so the reason why I feel so deeply about this is because you need to go into your subconscious, go through that brick wall, right? And change things while you're in there, like rewiring your mind while you're in the subconscious. And that's why I use like an advanced form of hypnosis. Because people think of hypnosis like, TV shows. And they think that I'm going to, make them cluck like a chicken, or I take over their mind. But that's not really how it works. Um, and I feel like I needed to say this is because that people don't even know that there is such thing as a subconscious and how powerful it is, and the reason why they're feeling stuck. People are thinking, why am I doing the same thing over and over, even though consciously, logically, I know that I need change. And it's because of that. It's because all those things are locked away in this other area of the mind that no matter what you do logically, it's very hard for you to change.
Yeah. I love it, man. So true. And yeah, it's reminds me think of the health industry where a lot of people treat the symptoms, where they don't treat the cause, and it's the cause, right? And you
Yeah,
get to the bottom of
yeah.
it and you fix that, then everything else is like a domino effect from there, man. So I love this conversation today. We've gone deep on all of these things. That's really important because that's what's going to help us to move forward, right? In business, in life, what
Mm.
it is that we're wanting to do. And I guess as we're starting to wrap up here today, what one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
The number thing advice is that I want you to really challenge your thoughts. So just say like you want to get to that next level, right? In the past, what have you been telling yourself? This belief. I want you to catch it and I want you to be like, you know what? This belief or this thing has been holding me back. And I want you to think like, how true is this belief? Because people think this by certainty, like this is true. And what I do is that for those who have watched Inception, right? When they're in the dream, in this trance, they roll like a thing, right? To make them think, to make them see, am I in a dream or am I like in real life, right? They've got like this thing. Some of them use like a dice or a spinner. And I like to think of it like life like that. And this is how I've achieved most of my success by this simple thing, right? You don't have to go through hypnosis and all that kind of thing. If you just listen to this one principle, this will change your life. And so I compare it to a a version of like physics, like something that is true, like gravity. Gravity is true. And I say to myself, is this belief like gravity? And most of the time it's no. And then I find evidence for it to be not true. And then what I'm doing is I'm slowly rewiring my brain to look at the other side of what's holding me back. So if, as an example, you grew up thinking that money was the root of all evil, right? You're going to find a bias, a cognitive bias to believe that's true. You're going to look at, guns, you're looking at, drug lords, all that kind of thing, people that are evil, that have a lot of money. And then if you were to do this exercise, you'd be like, is that thought like, gravity? Is this belief as true as gravity? And you're like, well, no, it's just a belief. And then you would find evidence of how money is not the root of all evil. And then you would be like, okay, well, where has money been good? So then you would have a look at charities. You've been able to send your kids to really good schools. You've been able to feed your family. You've been able to buy a house. You've been able to pay rent. All these types of things. And just using that little thing can really change the way that you perceive life, and you can get to that next level very quickly.
Yeah, I love that. Evidence of why it's not true, and then stack on the evidence of the ways that it is, and build it up
Yep.
from there, man. Love it. Very, very powerful. And yeah, we connected through our network. So I learned about your awesome journey, mate, from various roles in businesses to now being an international TEDx speaker and peak performance coach. You're awesome guy, so knowledgeable, amazing. What you share with us here today of the awareness and everything of how we can shift right to get to that next level. And I'm sure you continue to help, NFL athletes, CEOs, leaders break through those invisible blocks and perform at their highest level. I'm very grateful that we connected. Look forward to partnering as with us. So, Karim, how can people find you and get in contact with you?
Just going to karimboktor.com, or I'm on every social channel. I'm everywhere. LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, just my full name, Karim Boktor. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's check out Karim there. Check out his website, all the socials connected in there, and yeah, to learn more on how you can get to that next level, mate. It's been a pleasure interviewing you. Thanks for being on the Business Growth Show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching and listening to the Business Growth Show, where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Ethan Cassiotis, or visit my website, ethancassiotis.com. And if you want to grow and scale your business, you'd reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. So until next time, remember that our business grows where we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So let's create wealth and freedom together.